G'day guys, and welcome to a highly improvised Everest setup review. Sorry. So I'll try and go through every runner. It's a very interesting race. It's probably not a huge race that I want to get highly interested in betting in, but just try and give my views on the race itself, the horses, where I think how it might be run, my opinion for what it's worth, and hopefully even if doesn't affect betting point of views, I might pick up a few things that others miss or whatever. So I'll just go through the field from the top. Obviously Chatak was top weight, not top weight, number one. $6 the best price around. Has been pretty much favourite all the way through betting since things were announced with She Will Reign, and amazingly, much to what I sort of expected at the start, they arrive here and as close to favourite as possible as well with Vega Magic. So good effort to get the horse here looking in good form. He's obviously encountered two slow paces or slightly slow paces on quick tracks, this time in behind Red Zell in her time, and only been warming up late. I do have a few reservations about how he's actually going compared to normal. Sorry, I can't use the this is sort of ported from my own home, so this is not as quick, so we'll just use the Racing New South Wales vision. So my issue is with Chatak. He's obviously losing touch a bit with the fields early. I do think he's been, I'm not going to say barrier trials, but I'd say he's been given two very quiet runs this time in. Obviously English was written a bit closer here, the next one's more relevant, but he's taking a long time to really hit his straps on these firm tracks, and when these horses are sprinting, it's only really when the race is over that he's getting through his gears. It's very hard to put him into the race earlier and sustain it. Everyone knows he can, but he's not in the race there at any stage. I know that's his racing pattern, you see him through the line there, but we'll watch again here behind in her time. He's really he's under the whip, turning for home here. And this is a key example of, just watch the gap between English and Chautauqua, and this is what I'm worried about. So the inside, just going through the review of this race and my opinion of this race, the winner gets the dream run through. Obviously not in this race, so quite irrelevant. Clearly Innocent, first up, doesn't race as well inside horses, but gets that right run through as well. English, who ran second, has to circle the field. Chautauqua comes from back as well and has to circle. So I'm definitely more positive about these two horses having to circle on the track this day, but understanding that clearly Innocent does have a bit of improvement and will be better suited outside of horses. I just struggle to see how he's going to go with a horse like English. So here we go. Here, say there's that's a bad angle, but say there's 2 lengths between them. When Chautauqua goes through its flat spot here, English is still well and truly on the bit. He's able to manoeuvre to a different part of the track and put on probably 2 to 3 lengths on Chautauqua under a hold. English then is able to show her turn of foot. She's maintaining that as Chautauqua's building his revs up, and really and truly it's only when the race is over and English has died on its run that there's any ground made. So I'm interested in this form line. I think it's pretty strong. I do think clearly it was a solid effort. I'm concerned that Chautauqua's flat spot's quite heavy, and really he needs to be able to get his toe into the ground to be able to go with these sprinters. I'm worried that he's going to get too far out of his ground again and may have too big a task on a firmish track. If a bit of rain comes from somewhere, it looks like a nice day today. It was a very nice day yesterday. Hoping they don't put too much water on this track, and it's a fair surface. He may face a tough task. He's obviously his best form's good enough for this race, there's no doubt about that, but it's always been you know, heavy track, heavy 9 when he rounded them up in the TJ late against the bias, but it was a very strange set of circumstances in most of those lead-ups. He had a strange preparation. A lot of horses in that race did. English was the one he bloused. I think English is much better on top of the track. She's had a good setup, and I really do think she's got the wood on him with their setups for this race. I don't mind the gate draws. I'll probably talk about English more in detail later, but obviously it's been quite a while since he's been seriously dominant at this level, and I just not completely sold that he's going to be in touch with these horses, and I don't think they'll be slowing down. Even if they run a fast tempo, I think they'll keep going. There's a lot of horses on speed here who look strong over 1200, so just think he faces a really tough task tomorrow, and I think if he's winning, I'll be losing on the race. Vega Magic, what an interesting horse he is. Arrives here off the back of 3 runs for Hayes Davenigard. His first run back, let's have a look if I can bring it up. Incredible effort in the, I'll have to pull this across here. So this was the Goodwood Handicap, which was the first run for the stable. Heavily backed this day. Handicap sprint races, extremely hard to race up on the speed in these races and kick on. Sat outside the leader here, Vega Magic. I didn't know much about the horse really before now. It's a West Australian import, obviously, and to sit parked with Blackheart Bart on your back, Fardana, who was unlucky in that Moya the other night. Vega Magic looked under immense pressure here for mine, even though it got on the speed quite comfortably. And what he finds when he's got, you know, strong horses coming at him from everywhere. Centre Anna Lane, the Rupert Clark winner, was a bit stiff. What he finds under pressure, and not even just finds, sort of runs away from them. I was pretty taken by the win. Obviously, that was his first start for the Hayes Yard. He then came out 13 weeks later and dominated the listed race.
Patiently. Inside, followed by the despised outsider with Divine 10, and also most important Schisms up there on the premises and driving through his law.
So again, did some work here. 3 wide, no cover. I think the tempo was suitable this day. I'll have a look in a second. It's still not a easy run in transit, that's for sure. Brave Smash is back here. I think it put in its best run clearly here, fresh. They do run time here. This is Brave Smash back here again. Sandra Anna Lane, who's come out and franked this form. There is still a small query that it is Melbourne form. Don't want to sound like Melbourne form's absolute tripe, but it's just hasn't really been tested. We see Brave Smash sneaking up inside runs here. I love the way he sort of attacked the line. It was a bit soft late, but this horse just so strong. He's just fends him off. You could just get that feeling that it didn't matter how far they go, he wasn't going to let him past. And that's the aura that this horse has about him a bit at the moment, as he showed in the Memsey, where he stepped to 1400 then, which is another great sign of this horse's adaptability. Not even really want to show you. He was handed a soft lead here, and it was a difficult day to lead and win, but he was allowed every chance by the tempo. He was allowed to set in front. But again, he doesn't have a real dynamic turn of foot. It's there, but he just can sustain it, and he just looks an absolute fighter. He's got a bit of northerly about him or something. He just wants to stick his head out in a close go. And looking at his time, so he's run fast time off a softish tempo in the fast enough time in the softish tempo in the sorry, what was that? The Goodwood. Came back and ran a really fast time, sitting 3 wide in that listed race over the 1200 on a softish track, and then came out on the off a slow tempo and ran fast time again, or fast enough time off a really slow tempo, 1400. So you just got to, looking through his form, 1200 looks his go. He just runs time every time he goes out, so a bit of pressure's not going to hurt him. He's run fast time off slow tempos, fast tempos. He runs 1400. He has to be the horse that ticks every single box. He is the one drawn awkwardly, so we've got him sort of sitting out here. If I should have taken out the emergencies, they sort of inhibit what the real map looks like. I actually will do that right now. Oops. Abort. Scratch this horse. He's the main one to take out from a map perspective. I'll take down as well. That should give us a clearer look at the map. So basically it's up to whether Hootson wants to kick up. Red Zell will be right there naturally, and then Vega Magic's the one who does he push? Does he sit 3 wide? Does Fell Swoop kick up and give him cover? Does he's the one that's the only query on this horse, where he gets to in the run. Will Hootson actually even bother kicking up? Will it take a sit? Will Red Zell lead with Vega Magic on its outside? I think that's a distinct possibility. Pardon me. But either way, Vega Magic's right in the race, and I think it's a deserved favourite. And as I'm just looking now, I'd say there's no $5 around anymore, so it's just been trimmed up. Interesting betting on this race already. And I see Vega Magic starting favourite just because of the ticking all boxes. Apart from that, obviously 42 days between runs, coming back in trips not ideal, but the way that David Hayes has got this horse on a string, I don't see any dramas at all. Red Zell's next up. Interesting horse that has definitely matured into a serious animal these days. He had a few convictions early in his career, but now that they sort of ride him for speed and ride him aggressively, he seems to be able to maintain or build off a slow tempo or maintain a fast tempo. And he ticked the 1200 metre box twice over the autumn. He won a 1200 metre Group 3, beating some nice horses, leading all the way there at Randwick on a heavy track, then came out and won the Group 1 in Doomben over 1200 on a soft track as well. He set a fast tempo there and held on. I do think that last 100 metres is his query. I understand that he's run it, but just a little bit concerned about that last 100 metres when it comes to a really high pressure race like this is a chance of being. This is last start behind Baller Muscle when he beat Baller Muscle when he sat outside the leader. Obviously this is English, who was ridden a bit close this stage. Chautauqua down the outside, they all tie in, but he doesn't look like stopping here, and that's after sitting outside the leader, which is another chance. I think if he wins, he'll win by a nose, but I can see him sort of finishing a length and a half behind them just because of that 1200 metre tempo and possibly a couple of others around him that are a little bit better suited here. I think that English can close the gap on him. I'm a little bit worried that sort of takedown Fell Swoop, everyone was closing on him a bit late, and Chautauqua obviously as well. But in saying that, it was a softish tempo that he built off, so he was entitled to kick and win, which he did. He's going to be in the right spot. He's drawn ideally. He'll be there for a long way. He'll give you a run for your money. I'm just concerned about that last 100 metres with Red Zell. Red Kirk Warrior. Very, very strange horse. Obviously raced in Hong Kong for the first part of his career, won up to 1400 metres. There was a 2000 metre winner in England before he came to Australia. Came to Hong Kong. Then he won over 1600 in Hong Kong. Came to Australia, ran well first start in a race, beaten by Sir Bacchus. Off a year-long break, came out and won straight up to 1500 metres. Dropped back to 1200 metres down the straight at Flemington and was dominant there. Then came to Sydney on heavy tracks and didn't have a lot of luck, raced okay. Came back and was dominant again down the straight at Flemington in a very average-looking race, as was the race that he won there the time before. He's a very hard-going horse. That form's come out of that race and been a bit sketchy. I know Scales of Justice had a genuine issue the day that he was beaten in the Rupert Clark. He was galloped on, but it's just a little bit of a worry that nothing's come out of that race and won, or other than a couple of metropolitan placings. He's a hard-going horse. He's drawn an inside gate. I really don't know where he ends up, and I just think that 1200 metres at this level may be a bit sharp for him. He's obviously well in the betting at around the $9 mark, but he's one of the horses that I'm happy to be against. He's just there's not enough depth to his form for mine to overcome the poor racing style.
Reward yourself.
So this is him here. He could hardly be more impressive to the eye. Just fast forward through it a bit. This is him through the middle. He just travels kindly throughout. I'm just concerned, like, these are the horses that are around him. Saratuno, Savile Road wants further attention. There's just, have they got the quality here? I know he's dominant, but I really do think this straight racing suits him. I don't think the bend at Randwick's as much to his liking. I don't think being buried in behind them, which is a big possibility, is to his liking. I think he could get keen, and just think that probably a little bit further's more his go. It's just, watching that replay, it's hard to really knock him, but I've just got to worry about it all the form lines, and I'm just, you got to take a set one way or the other with the horse, and this one I'm just going to let go. Just think that, a horse with his sort of form lines just don't tie quite into a 1200 metre race here. Clearly Innocent, solid first up. There's no doubt about that. He's always shown that second up he improves dramatically. They've thrown the winkers on, which is interesting, whether they just worked him in it and maybe just looking for that extra little bit. When he has won second up, obviously he won at Scone, his second start in a race. He then came out and won at Scone again over 1400. So he's a big track horse. He's won again at Scone, second up last preparation, and then came out and was dominant in the Group 1 on the heavy track, beating some nice horses over 1300. It's difficult to say. Like, that was a weight for age win in a big Group 1, so you can't say he's not up to this level. You just get a feeling he has to raise the bar to get to a few of these others. I do think that he's dangerous. I do think he's really dangerous. I see him coming with a horse like English, whether he's got the turn of foot with her or whether he can stay with her and then just be a little bit stronger than her late is his best chance. I do think he's drawn ideally to sit in behind the likes of, say, a Deploy, try and get on the back of a Deploy, which will take him a long way into the race and put him in the right position to be winning the race. I do count him as a winning chance, there's no doubt about that, and I definitely can't knock him at $17. He's got the best rider in the world, or is close enough to it, in Hugh Bowman. And there's not many knocks on this horse in this race. I've probably got him marked more around the $12 mark, which is much shorter than the $17 currently available. So I've only got really positive things to say about him. He's a lightly raced horse that still can be on the up, and just if it was 1400, I'd be much more interested. If there was a bit of rain around, I'd be much more interested in him and have him shorter, but can't knock him at the price. Deploy. Now this horse is extremely hard for me to line up. Obviously got some personal attachment with the rider who's aboard, so I've had a really good look at this horse. If you forget his first couple of preparations before he was gelded, you then show up in December of 2016. He's then had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of his last 7 wins in Sydney. He's been dominant in most of those. He's run time. He's improved at nearly every start. So he came out and he was undefeated for a preparation, resumed its going, was narrowly beaten in a really slow, ugly run race. Came out and went to Brisbane, won a Group 2 there after having his chance sitting outside the leader. It's just a bit too strong for Dothraki late. He then had no luck at all back up at Doomben from a wide gate. Complete forgive. 56 days off, came back out and dominant and ran track record time on a fast run track. Then came out again and was very well ridden, fast track again, and dominated some horses that were not as well placed during their preparation as he might have been. But in saying that, his last 4 runs have all been running in fast time for their class. He's run very well on each occasion. He's definitely on the up. He's trialled okay since. My worry is that you've got to go through his form, and you're saying that this race here, when he broke the track record at Rosehill last start, Dixie Blossom's come out and won well since a group race. Euro Angel's run well since. Egg Tart's run well since. Mighty Lucky's come out and run twice well since. So there's some good form behind it, but the problem is that they all had... This was their bridge run to a peak performance, whereas Deploy was ready, fit, flying, had conditions to suit, was perfectly ridden, and did destroy them in good time, but had the setup to do that. And you just got the start before that. He beat the Virginian Burning Passion. Ome Sword's not been at her best. Invader's gone for a break, I believe. Spectroscope as well hasn't been at its best, and Alluvian was just trying to go too far in distance. So another race where it was ideally set up and did the job, which is all you can do, but a little bit question marky around the form. Same with Dothraki at the end of a 1200 metre race. He was just too strong there. Perfect Dare ran third. Going back, we're looking God Unders, Tower of Song, Noble Joey, Roaring to Win, Petrosian, Noble Joey, Wide Acclaim, Fanning. This is his absolute acid test, a massive jump into a much bigger pond. He's now going from a big fish in a little pond, and that's the way he's been beating these horses. He's a smaller fish in a big pond. So this is his day to stand up and be counted, or if he's a little bit found out about where he is at the moment. He's obviously been given a great grounding, and there's no way he'll come into this race busted. He's never raced out of his grade and been hurt before, so he draws a gate where he looks like he'll have options. If they're going slow early, he can press forward. If Redzell takes the front, he could end up outside him. Or he could just take a trail off a Fell Swoop or a Vega Magic, someone rolling across. So it looks like he's drawn ideally to have options, and he'll put himself in the race. He can sit just off him and definitely sprint, or he can do work and battle on. He's got the ability to do both, so I can't see him not running well. I just wonder whether he has the quality to measure up to a few of these, and that's simply because he hasn't been thrown into that, so the question mark's there. He's a winner over 1400. He ticks a lot of boxes. It's just a matter of whether he can measure up to this next level, and he has won on a heavy track too, so a little bit of softness won't hurt him. Probably the drier the better, there's no doubt about that. It was a sort of a fast 2 the last 2 times he's run, and he's handled that really well. So Deploy's an interesting runner that I can't really line up that well, but I'd probably have to take a little bit of a set against him, simply because of his class he's lined up previously too, and that's not to say that he can't measure up here, it's just that he has to prove himself. Fell Swoop hasn't really presented at the top of his game this preparation. I'm not going to call him a non-winner, but he's a highly consistent horse at this level who has struggled to break through a Group 1 grade, but has run obviously very well on occasion, beaten narrowly in a Manicato last year, a couple of times placed in the TJ Smith. He was only beaten 2 lengths first up. His effort was solid there. He was only beaten 3 lengths the other day. Again, not a lot of luck, and he was solid there. He draws most awkwardly here of most of the chances. They throw the winkers on, probably peaks, but just have to be against him. Can't really see him measuring up, and really need a Bradbury situation for this horse to be winning. Brave Smash next up. Blinkers go on. 21 days between runs. It's had 3 1200 metre runs this prep. Having a good look at his form, he does look like a miler to me. He does look like a mile. His go, the way he races like he probably wants a mile. He hasn't been attacking the line, which doesn't really worry me, especially beaten in listed grade last start. Now comes to weight for age at the same distance. The Blinkers would have to perform an absolute miracle on this horse. Obviously, you've got the tie-in run there at 1200 metres first up behind Vega Magic. Vega Magic did sit 3 wide, no cover that day, and carry more weight than him. Just have a look at the weight swing. So Vega Magic that day had 60.5, carried 6 kilos more. Now meets him at set weights at the same sort of distance, which to me would be more appropriate for Vega Magic. He had a harder run that day, Vega Magic, and probably gets an easier run today. It's very difficult to come into this horse. I wouldn't say that it can't be around the placings and run a pretty honest race, but I'd be very surprised if it won. If it was mine, even with the blinkers on, I'd be riding it dead cold. He just seems to be a horse that ran better that way first up, ridden a bit too close his last two and struggled to hit the line late, so he'd be ridden dead cold and allowed to find the line. English I've talked quite a bit about already. She's a mare trained by Gay Waterhouse who looks to have really got a peak. I saw her at Canterbury during the week and she looked incredible, best I've ever seen her look at track work. She's coming off a solid run first up, which was a really good fitness building run, sitting a little bit wide there and hit the line okay for a horse that had to do a bit of work and was ridden a bit close. Given the cold ride last start, and she really improved. Things against her there, slow tempo, and she was entitled to peak late, having to sustain quite a long sprint to get to where she got to. And 1200 metres again, he looks ideal. She's a winner over that distance. I think it's probably her absolute furthest peak distance. I don't think anything further is what she's after. I think 11-1200's her range. I don't mind the wider straw. I think that gives Blake Shin options, whether he'll grab hold a little bit, but I don't think he has to get back to Chautauqua land, back where he'll be. If he can just get a 3 wide backside, I do think the right horse will be in that 3 wide train, like the likes of Fell Swoop, Deploy, even possibly Vega Magic, Tulip not so much, but if he can be in front of Tulip or not on its back and on the back of something else, even Tulip should take him far enough in this 6 furlong race to get her into the race, and then she's just got to show that turn of foot. So she's the one I can see tracking up wide and showing a turn of foot and being in the finish. I do really think she looks primed for this race and can definitely run well. She's in the right stable, she's got the right rider, she's got the right gait for a swooper, and she can definitely be in the finish. The only thing to be against her here would be if the inside was really hot and it was an on paces day, but that'll be pretty obvious if we get to this stage late. I think it's race 8 in the day. She Will Reign. Actually, go back to English again. The other thing we've got to say is, beaten a neck by Chautauqua 1200 metres on heavy track. I got to say that a drier track has to help this horse, especially against Chautauqua. Winner over 1400 metres at Randwick on a dry track at Group 1 level. I do really think that she beats home Chautauqua tomorrow, so that's my main reason for liking her as much as I do. Back to She Will Reign, a horse that I've genuinely probably underrated a bit throughout her career. She was obviously a very dominant winner at first start in a race, came out dominant again at Randwick. I bet her against her that day. She won by 4. She came out again and destroyed them first up, won well first up. I got a result the day she was beaten in the Group 2 1200 at Randwick. She then came out at Rose Hill and was ridden to absolute treat on that heavy bulk track, got through it and won the Golden Slipper. I'm still dubious about all of that form. I just think there was circumstances that were suiting her, and then she came out first up in a Group 1 race against open company on a night that it was hard to run on. She was ridden back a lot further than most people expected. She didn't jump great, and she ends up back in the field here. So there's a couple of lines of thought on this in this form. The pace is actually not that fast. Hang on, let's go back and have a look at the actual pace of the race. So they go a little bit quick, come home, but the time's very average. So if we keep that in mind watching the replay, but the time's not great. My concerns are that a horse like Fartana, Jungle Ruler should have been in the finish here. They kind of lay on each other, take each other out of the race. Fedora, who's a dead set 1,000 metre horse for mine, is very unlucky. You see that Shiva reins off the bit a bit here and does a good job because no one really came out this wide and sustained a run like this on the night. But as we're saying here, that we've got these horses sort of crowding each other. Fedora does cut the corner a bit and gets the split. Definitely very unlucky not to win, but lucky to get that run. She's sustained that. Like, that finish is really nice. She's holding nice horses like Fudu Lad and Malaguira to the line. How do you line that form up? That's the $1 million question. The run she gets here looks ideal. She'll probably settle midfieldish in the pack. She'll need luck. She's only a small horse. She's only got a light weight. Will she travel well enough to take a run? What will she do? She's the query horse in the race. My head says to me that 1,000 to 1,200 metres at weight for age is not an easy thing to do first to second up. My head says that form's very dubious. But there's something about this horse that just keeps proving me wrong, so I've got to be wary of that too. She's really never come into a high level Group 1. I know she's won a Golden Slipper, but that was on a heavy 10 and performed like that. Again, that was an average Group 1 first up, if there is such a thing. She's got to tick that box of mine, and for her to come up favourite against a field of this nature is probably a little bit aggressive. I'm concerned about the rider from the gate. I don't think he's really the one to make it happen from that gate. He'll be patient if the runs come. He's good enough to certainly take the runs and win the race. There's no doubt that the rider, Corey's definitely good enough to do that. But it's just a matter of how aggressive he was going to be at the point. Probably a $6 million winner's check's enough to motivate most people to take any sort of run. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. But I'm slightly against her. I know I'm conceding her a winning chance. I've marked her about $10, but she's a horse that I'm a little bit concerned about overall. So yeah, she's in the mix, but I definitely don't have a favourite. Hoot's in a horse that again I was against, certainly in the Golden Slipper, and then certainly first up. Tactics there were terrible, so you just had to forgive that. She went from 1,000 to 12, which we've talked about, but did go back to 3-year-old fillies grade. She had to win there and did. The time was just fair. She did look to be fairly strong through the line. She draws gate 1 here. Does she kick up? Does she take a sit? I'd be taking a sit. If she kicks up, she's going to cop pressure for some nice horses that we know. We've talked about Vega Magic, Red Zell, Deploy, who can absorb pressure. Most of them can run 1,400. Red Zell probably not, and probably wants to hold up a little bit longer than the other two, but the other two will be putting the pressure on. This horse has to give way for mine. If she doesn't, it's a huge effort from Toby Edmonds, and I will definitely be proved wrong. She's one that I'm not really paying much attention to, and I think she, her best chance is if she takes a sitting behind them and does her best work from there, just battles away. Last but not least, Tulip. A good winner on debut, a good winner in the lead up to the Golden Slipper, beating Elise, who was in her first preparation. Again, look, these times are really weak all the way through for these 3-year-old fillies, and she's really never raced outside of that grade except for the Slipper, which was another couple of query races, so the Slipper and the Sires. She ran well in both, beaten 5 lengths in the Slipper on that bog track and set a big task. She then came out and ran decently in the Sires, resumed in an average fillies open grade race, carrying only 57.5, and and was beaten, and then was a little bit disappointing behind Elise Champagne Cuddles in the 1400 metre T-Rose. So she off a slow tempo there too. So she's got a lot to prove. The wink has come on, big reports from the stable, draws a terrible gate. She's probably the roughie of the field, and with good reason. It's hard to line that form up. You know, if you're only running off the information coming from the stable, she's a knockout chance, but she really does have to step right up and prove that she's up to this level at this grade. It's not an easy job for a 3-year-old filly, even with the 51. So hopefully she's given every chance in the run. I'm not sure whether they'll go forward or look for a sit. Probably, I would imagine, look for a sit, unless the stable's got some strange plans, which, you know, wouldn't surprise me. It's not. She's rolled forward before, but I'd say she'd be more likely midfield here, and given a chance to run on the straight, and hopefully she runs well. But she's definitely a roughie in the race, and deservedly so. So recounting, I do, my main chances in the race are definitely Vega Magic and English. I think that they tick the most boxes. They can both run 1400. They both look suited to the big track at Randwick, and they both look like they're going to find the right positions in the run. Vega Magic a little bit of a query, so is English, but I think I'd rather have more room than less in this race. In behind them, I think there's definitely winning chances. I think clearly Anderson's a bit better value than, say, Chautauqua and Redzel and Deploy, who are the next lot that sort of slotting behind there. Deploy just that last little bit, and then She Will Reign. I think they're the winning chances. I'm going to take a little bit of a set against Chautauqua. Obviously not surprised if it wins and gets over the top of them. To be a great training effort. A little bit of a set against Red Kirk Warrior with its form lines and its best work down the straight at Flemington. Against Fell Swoop, I think that Brave Smash can run a race, and She Will Reign is in behind there as well, taking a little set against her, set against Hootson, and just hoping with Tulip that it runs well for connections. So for me, I'll be making Vega Magic and English my two best results, and probably a little result on Clearly Innocent as well. Tough race, but really intriguing, really good concept. Happy to have spent hours and hours looking into it, even though I probably won't be betting too hard on the race, because it's just an interesting form race to bringing all these lines together, different age groups. It's a really good concept, and hopefully it only continues to evolve from here. Thanks, guys.